Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Shreya. I had a crazy reading month in January. I told myself that I was going to slow down and only read things that I really resonated or I thought were going to be good, and I was going to DNF more. However, even with those same principles, I managed to read 19 books. How did that happen? I don't know. I don't know how we're already done with the first month of the year. That is crazy to me. I will say I am filming this video a couple of days before January actually is over, but the only new book that I'm going to read is Crescent City 3, and I'm sure I'll do a reading vlog or my thoughts and opinions will be somewhere on the channel. Stay tuned if you want to see my thoughts on that. But yeah, I can feel myself starting to go into a little bit of a slump because I did read so many books, but I had a really good month and I had several 5-star reads, which is crazy because I didn't have a single one in December. Alright, without further ado, let's just get started. So I started my month with a novella, which you can say doesn't count, but it's my rules. So it counts as a full book, and it is Killjoy, which is actually the prequel to the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, and I read the first book. I'll talk about that one later in this video, but I didn't even know that this was a thing that existed, but I saw it in my library and I was like, oh my god, I have to get it. This one is only 120 pages in this novella, and basically our main character Pip, who is also the main character in the trilogy, go to a murder mystery dinner party, and they're all given different scenarios and characters and they have to solve a murder mystery. And it was a really good novella, especially for being so short. It's giving Knives Out. It's giving very fun suspense. I will say the ending to this is not what you would expect. I was expecting a very classic ending, something that you would predict, and I got it wrong. I gave this one 3 stars, which is about as much as I could give a novella, but it was really good and it gave me a little taste into what was to come for the trilogy. Okay, next I read 2 books on my Kindle. So the first one is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. My best friend has been begging me to read this, and these are not the type of book that I like and that I gravitate towards, but I decided to pick it up for her because she's read so many things that I asked her to. So The Deal is a hockey romance, and the girl, she's not super popular and she's into academics and stuff, and the guy is super sporty and he needs help in a class to get tutored, and he notices that this girl has an A, so he's like, you have to tutor me, and she's like, oh my god, why is he talking to me? No. And they end up dating and it's the whole thing, and I loved it. It was a really guilty pleasure romance to me because it was everything that I typically don't like, but it was done really well. This guy, Garrett Graham, is a walking red flag. In real life I would hate him, and he's everything that I'm ew and I don't like in a guy, but in the book it worked and I'm in love. I'm literally in love with him, and he does something at the very end which is a spoiler, so I won't say it, but it was oh my god, I cannot believe he did that, and if he did it in real life we would all be ew, why did he do that? But in the book it was oh my god, this is so cute. I don't think that I'm gonna read the rest in the series just because I feel I got a taste of what it is and I really liked it. I did give it 4 stars, but I don't really need that type of book in my life right now. That I have so many books on my TBR. I kind of know what the rest are going to be about. They're all the same. It all follows the same formula. But I have to say I did really enjoy this book, and I can see why it is so popular. The next book I read on my Kindle is All You're Perfect by Colleen Hoover. I have basically read every single book that she's written. There's a couple that I haven't gotten to. I keep on saying that I want to do a whole dedicated video of me rereading her books because my taste is so different now and my eyes have been open to so many things that I didn't catch the first time around. I was reading her books, I literally cannot believe that I didn't catch some of the things, like Ugly Love. Anyways, I decided to read this. This one had been on my list for a long time. I remember when I was first getting back into reading, I really wanted to read this book, but I didn't get into it then. I gave it a 2 stars. Listen, this book follows a couple, and it follows 2 different timelines. It follows the past when they were meeting each other and falling in love, and then the present when they are in turmoil in their relationship and so much stuff is going wrong. They like just are not vibing anymore. The reason why I could not get down with this book is because of the main reason why they didn't talk anymore was just I just couldn't get down with it. I don't really want to give it away, but it's not a spoiler because it literally happens for 75% of the book. They're talking about children and their conflict is them not being able to have children, and that's why they are at odds with each other. And I know that so many people face these types of issues in their relationships, but some of the dialogue that was said in the book like really rubbed me the wrong way. The way that one of the main characters talked about adopting children just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. There were just so many things about the book, and also I think maybe it's a personal thing because I personally don't want to have children, and that's just not something I've ever been like into, so like I can't relate. But I'm glad I read it because I want to read all of her books, but also 2 stars, not very good. Okay, next I read The Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first in the Infernal Devices. I have read all of the City of Bones and the other trilogy. I don't have much of it memorized in my brain. Like I can't really tell you what happened in the other ones, but I didn't want to commit to a series that big and large. So I bought this trilogy. I've had it for months. Haven't read it yet. Picked this one up and it took me a really long time to get through. It took me like a week and a half, which for me is like an eternity. This book is 500 pages and it doesn't end on a cliffhanger. It ends like kind of complete, and because of that I'm just like don't want to go into the next 2, but I will because it's sitting on my cart and it's like really annoying me that I haven't read it yet. So I will read it. Let me back it up. This trilogy is still set in the Shadowhunters world. This is set in London in the Victorian era, and we have Tessa who thinks that she's like completely normal and human, and she gets a letter from her brother who lives in London telling her to go meet him basically. So she goes and she meets him and she gets kidnapped, and events kind of unfold from there. She realizes that she has a power. She can shapeshift into anybody or anything, and she meets a bunch of people at the Shadowhunters Institute. She goes on a couple of quests, and this book kind of fell a little flat for me. It did give me the nostalgic feelings, which is why I was reading it, because I missed City of Bones, even though I couldn't tell you what happened in those books. But it didn't like grab me. Like I wasn't in love with it, and I haven't thought about it since I read it. I will give the other 2 a shot. I will finish them. It's a beautiful book, but if I read this when I was 12 years old, I don't think I would like it either because it doesn't feel very YA to me. So I'm gonna give the next 2 a shot, see if I fall in love with it and the characters, but this one I wasn't in love with. 3 stars. Okay, next I read my book club book, which was Marriage for One by Ella Mays. This book I've been seeing around a lot. This is a marriage of convenience book. It is also 500 pages. Why does it have to be 500 pages? I don't know, but I was literally like clawing my eyeballs out when I was reading this book. It was so bad. Like I gave it 3 stars just because it was so long and just because like the writing was okay, and some of the things that happened I'm like but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna knock it back down to a 2 stars. I think this embodied everything that I just don't like about romance books, and it's the reason why that genre doesn't stay on top for me, because you have books like this and also like Say You Swear, which everyone just is in love with, and they're just bad. Like in my opinion, it's just bad and it didn't add anything to my life. The guy was just kind of annoying. He would do some things that I'm like, oh, that's kind of sweet, but then the girl in the book annoyed me and it was just too long. It was just too long, and just them falling in love, it was very slow, and the reason why he does what he does, it just didn't make sense to me, so I would skip this one. Okay, next we have The Spectacular by Fiona Davis. This book I gave 5 stars, so if you actually want to see me read every single book I've mentioned up until now, including The Spectacular, you can check out a video. I will link it down in my description box where I was reading until I found a 5-star book, and this was it. This was it. It was fantastic. flippantastic, and it just kind of like crept out of nowhere. I didn't think that it would be this good, but it was very good. This follows Marion in the 1950s, and she becomes a part of the Rockettes, and then so it's told in the past of her becoming a Rockette and her journey, and then the present where she is in a nursing home and going back to a tribute for the Rockettes. But she goes through so much hardship in this book because her whole family doesn't really agree with her becoming a Rockette. They want her to be a homemaker and stay at home, but she's like, no, I like dancing, I want something more. Her mom died and her mom was super into the arts, so she thinks that this is what her mom would have wanted, and she kind of estranged with her sister because her sister does everything that their dad wants them to do. So this is really a coming of age story with our main character like trying to become her own person and to really break out and be independent. And this also was a huge mystery. Like the last half of the book is a mystery that I thought was so good, and I didn't realize until the end that there's actually some truth to the events in the book. But I'm not going to tell you what the mystery is about because it will give away the book. So good. I really admired the main character and just reading about her struggles, and like I said, it really snuck out of nowhere. And if you want to see my full thoughts and reactions to everything, check out the link in the description below. But highly recommend, and I don't really see anybody talking about it, which is kind of sad. Okay, next we have Dancing at the Pity Party, which is a memoir by Tyler Fetter, I think. It is such a cute cover. That's why I ended up picking it up at the library, because I saw the cover and I was like, ooh. But I didn't know it was gonna be like super sad. I should have known. Like, it's called a dead mom memoir. The main character, this is also like true with a memoir, but it's written in a graphic novel sort of way. So it is just really interesting and not a short read really, because there's so much content in this and you just want to go back and read it over and over and over again. But she loses her mom, and she takes us through the progression of her getting sick, her dying, her grief, and how she is now. I want to be a person that doesn't rate memoirs, so of course I put it as a 5 stars on my Goodreads because I did love it and I thought it was really good, and I thought that she portrayed grief in a really real way and just like the emotions that come from it. It is sad, but some of the things that happen and some of the things that you experience are not always linear to that, if that makes sense. So she portrayed those emotions really, really well, and I highly recommend if you have lost someone or are dealing with grief. I think that there's a lot of comfort in knowing that it's a very communal experience, even though it feels like you are alone. You're not. So I really, really enjoyed this book. Again, I don't really hear anybody talking about it, but I think more people should read it. Next, I read Period Power. This is a manifesto for the menstrual movement by Nadia Okamoto. This is a young adult manifesto. I checked this out because I saw the title and I was like, sure, I'll read that. So I did, and I did give it 3 stars because I think that if you are a teenage girl and you haven't really been educated a lot on this subject, this is a really good book to pick up because it takes you through everything and the basics. Basically everything from like what is a period to how to deal with it, and then also talking about social inequities and actions that we can take to make the situation better, to help the situation. I did learn some things. Like, she goes really into depth. She obviously did a ton of research to make this, but again, it leans very like teen beginner, and I am a 22-year-old graduate student who like is interested in the topic and got a lot of her own research. So because of that, a lot of this book was just like pulling teeth because I already knew it, but I do think it is a great educational resource. So if you are interested in just the topic of periods, I would recommend it, but to me it was a 3 stars. I read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. First of all, this is a gorgeous cover. Second of all, I told myself I wasn't gonna read it because I gave Divine Rival 2 stars. I am like the only person in the world that hated that book. I thought it was not good. I thought it was boring, and I just think I discovered that I hate reading letters in books. I just can't stand it for some reason, and I know that everybody loves it, so I don't know what's wrong with me, but I hated that book. I saw that nobody had checked this out at my library, so I decided to snatch it up before people realized that it had come out, and I am so glad I did. This is the continuation of Divine Rivals, so obviously I can't talk too much about this because it takes place right after the events in Divine Rivals, and if you know, something crazy happened at the end of the book, and so I don't want to give it away, but I thought that this was a perfect way to end the duology. The reason why I loved this book so much more than Divine Rivals is because there was so much going on. There was so much action. The plot was taking us places. Like, we were always moving, and in Divine Rivals, like, nothing happened, and it just frustrated me, and it was just annoying. Like, it literally only focused on the romance, and as we've established, I don't love that genre. But this book was just so perfect, and the way everything concluded was really good. It focused on the war more and the gods and that whole thing, which really wasn't explained in the first book at all, but she really killed it with this last installment. It was so good. I gave it a 4 stars. I did think at one point that it was gonna be a 5 stars, but it couldn't be because I hated the first book. So it just didn't make sense to me to do that, but it was really good. It was so good, and I have seen that most people like the first one better than the second one, but I disagree. I think that this one was just loads better. So much happening, so much plot, and it was just so good. It was really good. So maybe this will convince me to go back and reread Divine Rivals, but oh, I remember just having a visceral reaction to hating it. So I guess that just tells you that we're all so different and react so differently to the same thing, and that's just so fun. It's just so fun. Okay, next I read Circe by Madeline Miller. I did read this years ago when it first came out, but I decided to reread it again on my phone, and I really liked it. It tells the story of Circe. She is mentioned in the Odyssey, and she gets her whole installment in this book. I gave it a 4 stars. I did like it, but I like the Song of Achilles way better. That's 5 stars. The reason why this one got a 4 is because her writing is really lyrical. It is very beautiful, very well thought out, but I was bored for a lot of the time. Not even bored, like nothing was happening. Like, I was still having a good time because the writing was so beautiful, but not a ton was happening. You really get her like growth and her being self-confident as the person that she is, and I really enjoyed reading about that. But the Song of Achilles is better in my opinion, but Circe is still really good. If you like lyrical, beautiful writing and you're a fan of Greek mythology, you would like this, so check it out. I just needed my like fix of beautiful writing, so that's why I decided to give that one a reread. Next, I discovered a 6-star series. It is the Heartstopper series. Literally, what the heck. I read the first one on my phone, but I just wanted to read them. Like, I just had something in my heart where I was like, I really want to read these books, so I checked them out of my library. These books are graphic novels about Nick and Charlie, and they fall in love basically, and they go to high school together, and it's just like the progression of them meeting each other, liking each other, falling in love, and then just some of the struggles that they deal with as a gay couple. And then we also deal with one of the characters coming out, and then we have all the other side characters. Let me show you the covers because they are gorgeous. Like, this is the 3rd book. They go to France and Paris together, like the 4th one, and this is the 5th one. I did give them all 5 stars. However, if we're talking individually, the 5th one was my least favorite, but they were all just so good. I'm so attached to the characters. I wish the best for them. The reason why I love them so much is because they're just so pure and so innocent. Like, I have never come across 2 characters, even in YA books, that are just so kind and patient with each other, and they have so much grace with one another. Like, even when they're arguing, it comes from such a place of love, and we don't see that often in books, and it was just so cute and so pure. I'm gonna show you one of my favorite scenes. He literally just like runs out of his house in the rain. Like, It's just so adorable. Like, they are so perfect, and every single time they get into an argument or something in the book, I'm like afraid that they're gonna say something like really mean, and they never do. And I know it's unrealistic, but I don't care. Like, I just love it so much. It's so good, and I cannot wait to read the 6th and final installment of Heartstopper. I did watch the first 3 episodes of the TV series on Netflix, and I did like it, so I'm gonna watch more of it. But no words can describe how much I am in love with it. I'm definitely gonna have to buy it because I checked these all out from my library. It's just so good. It's so good, and the side characters are so good, and there's like a side character thing that happened at the end of book 3, and I'm just so in love with it. So I'm so happy I discovered it. They just make me so happy, and it feels like so calm and cozy to me, and I'm just in love. I am just in love with their story and how pure it is. It like made my black heart melt a little bit. So highly recommend to everybody. Okay, then I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I am going to include this in the video coming up, so I'm not going to go too much into depth about this. I will say I don't really understand the obsession with this book. It is about Pip, and she, for her high school capstone project, decides to solve a murder. So this book is her talking, but it also includes maps and excerpts and interviews that she includes in her project. So it is like fun to read because I haven't read anything else like with that structure, but it was like kind of boring a little bit, and it felt a little bit flat for me, and I did like the end, but if I didn't already own the next 2 books, I probably wouldn't pick them up. So because of that, I gave it a 3 stars. But again, I do have a video coming up where you will be able to see my reaction to reading everything. Okay, next I read Loveless by Alice Osman. This also is going to be featured in a video coming up, but I will say I checked this out of my library because it's by the same author that wrote Heartstopper. I thought it was a graphic novel. I was wrong. It's a real novel. This is about Georgia, and she is entering college, and she literally had never had her first kiss, any of that, and she goes to make out with her 7-year-long crush at a high school party right before she enters college, and realizes that she is disgusted. Like, she's like, why did I even have a crush on him? That prompts her going to college with a mission of like finding her future boyfriend, because she loves romance, loves love, so she needs to get on that. She can't find anyone, and she's just very, very confused, and everyone's trying to help her, and she discovers that she is asexual, and this book is her coming to terms with it, figuring it out, and learning to be herself. My favorite aspect of this book is the emphasis and the overarching theme of friendship, and how important that is, and how significant it is of a love form and a love source. And that is what I really connected with on this book. I really related to a lot of the things that happen in this book, and just like the particular feelings and thoughts, but I had some issues and qualms with the way that it was written. I didn't quite connect to it. So I think that this was targeted to a very specific demographic, and I'm not it. So I didn't fall in love with the book. But I did give it a 3 stars, but it is a pretty high 3 stars. Okay, I'm so excited to talk about this. Next, I read Jade City by Fonda Lee. I tried to read this 3 times and didn't go through with it every single time because I felt stupid. I could not for the life of me understand what was going on. Like, I had no idea what was going on. And I tried to read it 3 times, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and return it. But then I was like, no, I am smart. Like, let me just make it to page 50, because I hadn't even gotten that far in the book when I tried to read it, and I was screaming, crying, sobbing, throwing up by the end of the book, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. 5 freaking stars. 5 whole stars for Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is part of a trilogy. I imagine that it takes place somewhere in Asia. That's my guess. In this world, jade is their power source. It's almost like a drug where you put jade on and you get these intense powers, and you can fight and do super cool things. And that's a little bit confusing, but in our book we have two clans. It's almost like gangs, and a gang war erupts basically because of an event that happens in the book. And there's so many family members and so many moving parts of the stories. You're also following like a million POVs, so many POVs. Why I think I got confused initially, but I'm telling you, give it a chance. It is so good. It reads like an epic fantasy, and I cannot wait to read the next two. I'm genuinely very scared, honestly, because I had no idea what to expect. Like, I honestly didn't, and then something happened at the 25% mark, I would say, that completely shocked me, and I realized, oh my god, it's this type of fantasy series. Like, it's a real type of fantasy series. After that event happened at the 25% mark, I really dialed in. I was so focused and I loved every bit of it. Like, I genuinely haven't been able to get this out of my head. Like, it's all I think about, and so I cannot wait to read the next couple of books. This is a really well deserved 5 stars. It is so good. It's definitely not for beginners. It's very complicated, I would say. So if you know you like fantasy, go for it. There's not a ton of romance. There's like no romance, I would argue. There's love and there's already established couples, but there's no like romance element of it, I would say. But highly recommend. I just love it. I love it so much. If you like epic fantasy, if you like gang fighting and wars and it's just intense politics, you would like this. Alright, and the last book of the month is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. It's book 2 of Encyclopedia of Fairies. First of all, look at how beautiful this cover is. It is literally beautiful, gorgeous. She's perfect. I did not rate the first one highly. I think it was like a 2 or 3 stars. This is marketed as cozy fantasy, and I can see why. It's because nothing happened, and I think I just realized that I don't love cozy fantasy. I don't love that, but I decided to check it out from my library because why not? And I did like this one more than I liked the first one because, just like Ruthless Vows, more stuff happens in it. It's more action-packed, more action-filled, but I just think that the writing of this book is just not something that resonates with me. It's just not something that I love. I gave it a 3 stars. I will probably read the third one because we're progressing here. Also, even though more things happen in this book, like, there isn't a ton of like actual huge plot points that happens. Like, the huge plot point happens towards the end, just like it did at the end of the first book. We're very gradually getting towards our goal here, and I think that since it is a cozy fantasy, we're just supposed to like sit back and enjoy the story and enjoy the characters, and that's just not my vibe. But I can recognize that it is a good book and the characters are very well developed, and so that's why it gets a 3 stars, and it is sitting very solidly in my 3-star range. So if you like the first book, you'll definitely like this. It's the same vibes. It's a lot of the same type of things that happen, like the same vibes that you will love if you like the first one, but we're still progressing the story a little bit. So I did like this one better than the first one. 3 stars. Okay, that was all of the books that I read in January. It was a very super successful month, and I'm very satisfied with it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.